Hi, this is Don Farber with VineyardSoft Corporation, and I'd like to welcome you to this training session on the KnowledgeSync solution. The topic for this session will be linked queries, specifically the linking of more than two queries together in order to perform advanced data analysis. Now, this training session on linked queries is the third of three sessions specifically on linked queries. As such, we recommend that you have watched the first two training sessions on linked queries before proceeding with the current session. Now let's take a look at the business case that we're going to be using for this training session. We're going to be considering an event that performs trend analysis. In this particular case, an event that runs monthly on the first day of every month and checks to see if a customer has changed their buying habits. How this event is going to do this is by doing the following. This event is going to go out and see what each customer has purchased in terms of units for the month just ended. And then this event is going to take that number and compare it to the client's average monthly sales based upon the preceding 6 months of activity, and then see if the customer's sales for the month just ended represents a decrease of at least 25% over their average monthly purchases. Now, as I mentioned, this event utilizes 4 linked queries in order to perform all of this analysis. The very first query for this event goes out and totals up what each customer purchased over the last 6 months, not counting the month just ended. Now, the second query takes that total and divides it by 6 in order to get an average monthly sales per customer. The third query for this event goes out and totals what the customer purchased for the last month, the month just ended. And the fourth and final query in this result set then compares what the client purchased last month versus the client's average monthly sales based upon the preceding 6 months of activity, and the event is triggered if any client sales have dropped by at least 25% based upon the preceding month's sales activities. Now let's take a look at the 4 queries that make up this event and see how they're linked together. We're going to start out with the first query. As I mentioned, this query goes out and totals up the units purchased for each client over the last 6 months, not counting the month just ended. So, this query retrieves data from a number of tables in an underlying ERP database, and using the KnowledgeSync linking wizard, links those tables together. This query then retrieves 3 fields of data. Number 1, the units purchased in this ERP database referred to as the quantity to ship. You'll notice that this field uses the aggregate function summarize to total all of the units purchased by a client over the preceding 6-month period. The other 2 fields of data that we've chosen is the customer's name and also, most importantly, the customer number, because it is the customer number that we're going to use to link each of these queries to the preceding query to make sure that our calculations are always being performed on the same customer. Now, if we jump ahead to the Filters tab, you'll see that this query has just 2 filters, and that is a filter doing a date calculation to make sure that we're counting up the units purchased that were ordered by each customer over the preceding 6 months, but not counting the month just ended. Now, before we leave this query, I'd like to point one thing out. The result of this query is going to be a total number of units purchased per client over the last 6 months. So our second step, query number 2, needs to take that total and divide it by 6. That total is going to be stored in a field called 6-month total. You can see it as the customized name for the aggregate column that's been chosen for this query. Now let's take a look at query number 2. As I mentioned, the purpose of query number 2 is to take the result of query number 1, that 6-month total, and divide it by 6. Once again, we're retrieving data from the same tables as the first query. But if you look on the Columns tab, what you'll notice is that we're not actually referring to a database field, but rather we're referring to a field from a preceding query. In this case, we're referring to the field called 6-month total, and we're dividing it by 6 in order to get a monthly average for each customer. How do we know that we're going to be dealing with the same customers as are being retrieved by query number 1? That's done on the Filters tab, because here we're specifying that the customer number retrieved by query number 2 has got to be the same as the customer number that was retrieved by query number 1. Once again, we're referring to the customized name of the linking field from an earlier query. In this case, that customized name is customer_number. Now let's look at query number 3. Query number 3's purpose is to go out and calculate the total number of units purchased for each customer for the month just ended. Once again, retrieving data from the same 3 tables, we'll jump ahead to the Columns tab and notice that once again we are creating an aggregate query, once again using the Summarize function, to total up all of the units purchased per customer over the last month. So you can see our customized name here is quantity last month, and once again we're also retrieving the customer name so that we get a total number of units purchased per customer. This second column is our group by field. But let's again jump ahead to the Filters tab. Our first 2 filters are making sure that this query retrieves only those orders that were placed last month. And so if we stretch out this compare value field a little bit, you'll notice that our compare values are last month start date through last month end date. And very importantly, of course, is our third filter, because that's what's making sure that again we're comparing apples to apples. The customer number retrieved by this query, query number 3, is going to be the same as the customer number retrieved by query number 1 and also used by query number 2. At this point, we're now ready to look at our fourth and final query. What you'll notice about this query is that although it's once again referring to the same tables in our underlying ERP database, if we look again at the Columns tab, all of the data on the Columns tab is referring to fields of data from preceding queries. This query number 4 is referring to data from query number 1, query number 2, and query number 3, all of the preceding queries. And so you can see we're performing some arithmetic calculations to calculate both the number of units and percentage difference in purchasing for each client between their purchases from last month and that client's average monthly sales. Finally, on our Filters tab, once again, we're making sure that we're dealing with the same customer number, so we're linking back to that customized name, customer number from query number 1, also used in queries 2 and 3. Finally, 2 last queries, we want to make sure that the customer's monthly average sales is greater than 0. And last but not least is our filter that allows us to identify customers where their purchases for the month just ended is less than 75% of their average monthly sales. That's the 4th query in our set, and those 4 queries, when working together in just this one event, allow us to identify those customers who have changed their buying habits. Truly some sophisticated data analysis, all done automatically in KnowledgeSync through one event utilizing 4 linked queries. All right, so that wraps up this training session, this third and final training session on the configuration of linked queries in the KnowledgeSync solution. I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you in a future KnowledgeSync training session. Thanks very much.